If you have been looking for a procurement software, chances are that these 5 names keep on coming up again and again. SAP Ariba, Coupa, Procurify, Bill.com, and ProcureDesk. So unless you want to spend a lot of money on a system that is designed for maybe 10x the size of your organization, or a system that actually doesn't solve the problem, stick till the end of this video. Now, I have spent more than 20 years in procurement, so I have my fair share of interacting with these systems and know which one works and which doesn't. So in this video, I'm going to break down all these 5 systems so that by the end of the video, you know which one works for you given your current situation. Let's get started. So I'm going to start with ProcureDesk, and full disclosure, this is the system we built. Now, to be honest, ProcureDesk is not for everyone. It is specifically designed for growing organization between 100 and 1,000 employees, and especially for controllers and CFOs who are looking to control spend with a process that is PO first rather than invoice first. So typically what we see in growing organizations is as companies start scaling their operations, procurement also scales along with it, which means more departments are spending more and more money. So whatever you were spending in terms of like tracking it on spreadsheets and things like that, that process does not scale. What we see as a symptom of this is finance is not the first one to know about spending. And they generally come to know about spending is when they see an invoice and say who spent it, why it was spent, and so on. And guess what? By that time, it is too late. Which means the finance team is using the month-end process to chase invoices and trying to figure out what money was committed and what is actually spent. So what ProcureDesk does is puts controls in place so that finance is the first one to know before the money is actually spent. So the way we do this is put together a purchase requisition process. So every employee puts in a request for what they need to purchase, what is the business justification for why they are buying it, and then system does a couple of things, right? Number one is it routes to the right person for review and approval so that the person can actually review and say, do we really need it at this time in the business? Number two, it checks for budgets proactively. So you're only spending money if your budget is available rather than just spending and later figuring out you have no money in the budget. And number three is it automatically codes those transactions to the right GL codes, to the right classes and things like that, so that when the transaction goes to the accounting system, it is already coded. So we'll talk more about that in details. Now, your approvals can be based on as simple as dollar amount. So anything more than $1,000 needs to go to manager, anything more than $5,000 needs to go to department head and things like that. Or you could be setting up a more complex workflow. So based on a project, it needs to go to a project manager, or if it is a IT purchase, then it needs to go to an IT manager. Those are the rules you can easily configure. Now, one of the challenges we see with procurement systems is they are designed for capturing all the information, but the employees still have to put in the information. So if you have a system that is designed for basically creating friction in the process, or employees have to put in a lot of cut-paste information from different sources, they just find easy way to do things, which means they'll be using their credit cards or call the vendor, and then you get an invoice later, and then they ask for forgiveness later, right? We see this all the time. Now, the reason that happens is your system is not designed or it's not user friendly, and the way to solve that is have vendor punchouts. So ProcureDesk has 200 plus vendor punchouts where employees can simply click on their favorite vendors list. It's already pre-connected to their website. So they see the same experience, pick up what they want to purchase. It has your preferred pricing, so pricing is taken care of. But the most important thing is then it brings it back into ProcureDesk where it needs to be reviewed and approved before the order can be placed. So it's easy for employees to use, but it also gives you spend control. That is where most of the systems fail, right? They're either designed for easy to use or spend control, but we do both. On the accounts payable side, ProcureDesk automates the entire process. So when the vendor sends an invoice, whether they are sending it through an email or through maybe vendor portal or e-invoicing, all that information comes into ProcureDesk. Then the system runs it through a OCR and AI combination and then figure out what is in each document, match it with the respective purchase order and receipt, and perform the 3-way match or 2-way match. Now, the main difference is ProcureDesk is designed to work at a line level. So for each line, it is actually picking up, oh, did you order 10 and you only got 8? Okay, you shouldn't be paying this invoice because you're too short, right? So you need to reach out to the vendor and get that issue resolved. Or you doing a two-way match for the services that your organization is purchasing so that you can figure out whether the service was delivered at the right standards and you're satisfied before you pay the invoice. So all that is automatically done within the system. But the main issue which we typically see is when you have a two-way, three-way match process, you also need to have a process or a workflow designed to resolve any exceptions that you might be seeing. So if you see something, oh, there's a three-way match issue, you need to send to somebody to resolve it. So for example, if it is a price exception, maybe it needs to go to procurement. Or if it is a receipt exception, that means you haven't received the product in the system, maybe it needs to go to your warehouse team. All those workflows can be proactively configured in the system. So that's on the AP side. Now, once the invoice is reviewed and approved, it automatically gets synced to your accounting system. So whether you're just starting up and you're using QuickBooks or Xero, or you are a mid-market company using maybe Oracle NetSuite or Sage Intacct or Microsoft Business Central, we support all those systems. What that means for you is your team do not need to double entry or import the files and things like that. The moment an invoice is approved or a bill is approved, it shows up in the accounting system. Now you have two ways to do the payment. You can make the payment in ProcureDesk. ProcureDesk supports virtual cards, physical cards, ACH, checks, all that can be done within ProcureDesk, or you could use your accounting system to make the payment. So it kind of works with both scenarios. We don't force you to, hey, you have to use my card or payment platform. If you already have one and it's working good for you, keep using it. If not, you can always use that within ProcureDesk. With all that said, ProcureDesk is great for companies that are growing between 100 to 1,000 employees and who are PO first rather than just processing invoice. What that means is we'll do the entire setup for you and you will be up and running within 2 to 4 weeks, given the complexity of your systems or processes. And from a controller or CFO standpoint, what that means is you should be able to close your books in half the time. In our experience, we have seen controllers closing books all the way down from like 10 days down to 4 days. And what that means is you have more time to do the analysis of what is actually going on in the business rather than chasing invoices and closing books. And so if this sounds like your team, I will leave a link at the top of the description. So click that and so you can book a time with one of our product specialists and they can walk you through how ProcureDesk can help solve this problem. All right, let's get to the rest of the video. Now let's talk about Procurify. Procurify is a tool that is most commonly compared with ProcureDesk. Now, Procurify also have the entire, I would say, rec to PO process, very similar to ProcureDesk. And they also have, in addition, what's called virtual cards. So you have the virtual cards embedded in the whole solution. So you can use, if you are a company that is card heavy, which means you don't have maybe a PO process, but you just want to issue credit cards or virtual cards to employees for making the purchase, this is a good solution to compare. So places where you can use virtual cards would be software subscriptions or travel and so on. So if you're like a software company and most of your spending is on virtual cards, this is what the consideration. Now let's talk about some of the limitations of Procurify. These are some of the things we picked up from reviews. So for example, a lot of people talk about the limitations in terms of customizing the purchase orders, whether it comes to process or the formatting of the purchase orders. And with budgets, Procurify does have budget capability, but it is more designed to report on the budgets in terms of telling you how much you have spent versus proactive blocking the budgets like ProcureDesk does. In terms of pricing, the price starts from anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 or more. So it varies from depending upon size of the company. So I would just recommend working with a vendor based on your current situation to figure out exactly how much it's going to cost. All right, so the next tool we're going to review is Bill.com. Bill.com is designed primarily for AP, that's accounts payable, and AR. So if you have a use case where there is no purchase orders and all you need is a system where invoices comes in and it pulls the amount and the supplier name and everything, like the basic details, and you can code it and route it for approval, Bill.com is a solution for that. So Bill.com is primarily AP and payments, which means you can process your invoices, you can then route those invoices for approval, and those are paid within the platform itself. It also offers AR capabilities, which means you can not only just pay using Bill.com, but you can also receive money using Bill.com. Now, Bill.com has around 7 million vendors in their database, so all your major vendors are already connected, which means your onboarding time significantly reduces. Now, Bill.com supports ACH checks as well as virtual credit cards for payments to vendors. Bill.com does support international payments like wires and all, but it does have limitations when it comes to having cross-country accounts. So like let's say you're a US company, but you also have a UK entity, and UK entity have its own account. That is where the limitation comes into picture. Now, Bill.com does have a procurement platform. They recently launched a procurement platform which is designed for, I would say, solving the basic use case of a purchase order. So if you need a simple purchase order tool where you can just put a PO number and the amount, and then just that way you have an invoice to match it to, this is a good solution. What it does not have punchouts. It's not supported for buying materials. It doesn't have any catalog capabilities and so on. So this is primarily designed as a lightweight solution for, let's say you are a small non-for-profit and you're required to issue purchase orders, and your employees don't mind going into the system, typing in whatever they're looking to purchase, then this could be a possible solution. Now, ProcureDesk does support integration with Bill.com. So in this setup, the way things work is you will manage your purchase order process in ProcureDesk in terms of creating a purchase request, issuing a purchase order, and doing the two-way and three-way match. And once the match is completed, the bill sits in Bill.com for payment. So if you want to continue using what you're already using, this is a good solution. On its own, from a pricing standpoint, Bill.com starts at around $45 per user per month, and with the ability to add your procurement module as an add-on. Now, the next tool we're going to cover is Coupa. Now, Coupa is designed for large enterprise companies. It handles the entire source to pay in one single system. It has other capabilities also, like contract management, like sourcing tools for procurement teams. Supply chain is built. There is treasury function. So there is a lot more the tool can do. But of course, it comes with a price tag. Now, Coupa works well for larger companies, and primarily companies that, one, can afford a longer implementation cycle, like 6 to 10 months. 2, they have internal procurement teams that are managing procurement and the process. 3, they have admins who are actually managing the application on a day-to-day basis, right? So changing the system or whatever that needs to happen. But again, very powerful tool, but primarily suited for large enterprise companies. Now, as far as pricing is concerned, Coupa's pricing starts from $2,500 to $3,000 per month. Now, I believe this is the lower end of the mid-market. You should, your pricing might be higher given if you are a larger enterprise. The implementation time could be anywhere between 5 to 6 months or more. Coupa generally works with third-party partners who can implement this system for you. So if you're a large company with a large procurement team and have finance requirements like treasury management and so on, this is a good choice to consider. The next solution we're going to cover now is SAP Ariba. SAP Ariba is again designed for large enterprise companies. It is very comparable to what Coupa does. The main difference between a SAP Ariba and Coupa is SAP Ariba is very well integrated with the SAP ecosystem because it's owned by SAP. So if you already have an SAP environment, whether you're already running an ERP, SAP ERP, or considering going to SAP, this is worth considering as an option. The main advantage with Ariba is it has a large supplier network. So if you are thinking about cases where, hey, I need to do supplier discovery, like I need to find new vendors, but I don't know where to go, then the supplier network is super helpful. Now, supplier network also enables transactions in terms of sending purchase orders, receiving acknowledgements, or receiving invoices, matching those invoices. All that can be done using supplier network. Now, the downside to Ariba is two, right? One is it is complicated. It's not easy to implement. Takes some learning curve in terms of getting used to the system. So you need to have a very robust training plan for your teams if you're planning on rolling out Ariba. Second is pricing is expensive. Per user basis, it could be $2,400, $2,500 per year. So if you are, a small company, it becomes price prohibitive pretty quickly for the value you're getting from the solution. Now, if you still don't know which solution to pick, it really comes down to the size of your organization and the budget that you have. If you're a large enterprise company, go for Aribas and Coupas of the world because they're designed for enterprise solution. If you are a company looking to just solve hey, I need to just pay the bills, go for bill.com. Or if you are a company that is primarily using virtual cards and that's your main use case, you can compare solutions like Procurify or even ProcureDesk for that matter. But if you're a growing company and looking to control your spend and you want a system that is easy to use for your employees and it automatically syncs the data between accounting systems, click on the link below to schedule time with one of our product specialists to see whether ProcureDesk is a good fit for you. We will go through your team current approval process. We'll see what the integration requirements are from a integration with their accounting system standpoint, as well as what do we need to kind of set up a system that is easy to use for your employees. Again, click on the link below and schedule some time with our product specialist. And if you want exact info on the features that you should have in any procurement software, check this video.